How does God test you before giving you true love? God doesn't give you love when you ask for it. God gives it to you when you're ready not to destroy it. Before that, He will test you repeatedly. I'll share the 9 keys, the 9 tests you'll face. Point number 1. First, He brings back what you thought you had already overcome. That person who broke you shows up again, not because they've changed, but to see if you have changed. This isn't about whether you still love that person, it's about whether you already love yourself. Test number 2. Then He presents you with something almost perfect. There's connection, there's chemistry, there are laughs, but there's no soul. That's when you realize something important. Love can't be faked. You either feel it or force it. And forcing it is also a way of losing yourself, a way of not loving yourself. Point number 3. Then comes a stage that many don't understand. Deep loneliness. You may feel stuck while others move forward, but it's not punishment, it's preparation. Because that's when you discover that you're not alone, you're learning to be with yourself. Point number 4, test number 4. Later on, the same pattern appears with a different face, a different story, a different name, but the same ending, and life holds up a mirror to you. Are you making choices from your pain or your truth? The cycle will keep repeating until you break it. Test number 5, and then it takes everything from you except yourself. It takes away relationships, plans, expectations, everything falls apart. Not to destroy you, but to rebuild you without dependence, without masks, without needing someone to save you. Test number 6, there's also a silent test. In this case, it will give you stability, but not love. Everything seems fine on the outside, but something inside still feels empty, because what's real doesn't just fill your schedule, it also fills your soul. Test number 7. Then comes the most uncomfortable one, facing your own contradictions. You say you want love, but pick someone who can't give it. You seek commitment, but get attached to what's impossible. That's when you realize this. It's not a lack of love, but of consistency. Test number 8. Until the key moment finally arrives. Choosing yourself for the first time. Saying no, even if it hurts. Letting go of what almost is to make room for what truly is. And that decision changes everything. And test number 9, and the last one. And right before true love, something unexpected arrives. Peace. If you can't find peace within, you'll seek chaos in others and the world. Real love doesn't disrupt you, it supports you. Because true love isn't begged for, it isn't chased, it isn't forced. It simply arrives. And it comes when you two are what you're looking for. At that moment, you no longer receive it as a reward and recognize it as a reflection. If this resonated with you, write in the comments, I'm ready for real love. The secret to not letting anything others say affect you. You will be unbreakable. Has a criticism ever ruined your day or even ruined your week? That moment when someone says something and without realizing it, you take it in, you swallow it. Today that ends. Because the problem isn't what they say, it's what you do with what they've told you. The Stoics knew this over 2,000 years ago. Philosophers like Epictetus taught something powerful and said the following: it's not what happens that affects you, it's how you interpret it. And here is the key that makes you unbreakable. Other people's opinions are not under your control, so why do you give power to other people's opinions? Think about what the Stoics used to say. If someone claims the sky is green, you don't get angry because you know it's false. Why? Well, the effect that criticism, even a lot of it, has on you works the same way. They're perceptions, but they're not realities. Now I'm going to give you 3 Stoic tools that can change your life. Point number 1, the Stoic idea of the inner citadel. Picture a place within you that no one can access without your consent. And every criticism is like an object thrown at you. But you decide what is important, what is key. You decide whether to catch it or let it drop. If you don't catch it, it's not yours. Point number 2, the truth filter. Marcus Aurelius said, if it is shown to me, if it is proven to me that I am wrong, I will gladly change. So ask yourself, is there anything useful in this criticism? Yes, then you grow. No, then you ignore it. But you don't destroy yourself over empty opinions. And concept number 3, the silence of the wise. Not everything deserves a response. Your energy is your most valuable asset. Every time you argue, justify yourself, or get drawn in, you're losing power. The wise man doesn't react. The wise man observes and chooses. And now comes the most important part. I dedicate myself to conscious wealth, to abundance. So if you want abundance, you need to protect your mind. Because every criticism that affects you pulls you down into doubt, fear, and insecurity. And from there, nothing great will be built. You can't control what people say about you, but you can decide not to let it affect you. Right down here, my piece is non-negotiable. The three skills that make you unstoppable and that almost no one notices, understands, or develops. You don't lack information, you don't lack talent, you just need to train the right skills. Becoming unstoppable solves almost everything. Most people spend years learning things, but they don't learn to think better. And here's the key. If you want to become unstoppable, you need to master these three skills that change everything. The first skill is the ability to recognize patterns. Successful people don't see the world like everyone else. Instead, we immediately notice when something repeats. That's when we detect negative programming. We see what works, what doesn't work, what repeats itself in money, in relationships, in success. While others just react, we don't. We understand the game. The second skill is to use those patterns. That is, to see them, change them, and use them in a positive way. Because it's useless to see if you don't apply it. This is where most people fail. They know what they have to do, but they don't do it. And it's not a lack of discipline, it's a lack of inner direction. And the third, which is the most powerful, is to create your own patterns. How do I change them? I've already told you many times, by reading books, by taking courses. And the more you pay for a course, the more your negative pattern will change. So when you stop copying and start creating, your value skyrockets. That's where you become unique. That's where the market, people, and opportunities start turning toward you. But here's the most important thing. The problem isn't the how. Everyone knows what they need to do to improve their life. You have to eat. Everyone has to eat better, train, take action, put themselves out there, get rid of the fear of rejection, the fear of success, the fear of failure. That's not the problem. The issue is your mental state. If it's weak, you won't take action. If your internal story is I can't, I've already tried, this doesn't work for me, your brain is going to sabotage you. That's why the correct order isn't this. It's not strategy, but state, story, and then strategy at the end. First you change your energy, then you change what you say, and then you execute. And there's another point that separates those who move forward from those who stay the same. It's not motivation, it's the motive. This, when I understood this, it blew my mind. There are two types of drive, one fueled by pain and one that draws you towards something greater. The first one runs out. The motivation of I need to, I have to do this, and so on. However, the second one is infinite. When something matters more than your comfort, you don't need motivation. You have direction, and here is the closing that almost no one understands to finish this video. You can be successful and still feel empty, because success is a science, but fulfillment is an art. And if you don't learn to feel fulfilled, it doesn't matter what you achieve. Growing is not just about earning more, it's about becoming someone who has something to give. Because when you grow, you have more impact. And when you give, your life has meaning. If you want to become unstoppable, comment below. I'll create my own pattern. The fear of rejection? It's controlling your life and you don't even realize it. What I'm about to say might upset you, but understanding it can set you free. It's not a lack of talent holding you back, but fear of rejection. That same fear also contributes to your financial difficulties. Because when you're not afraid of rejection, you sell your products better. You approach potential clients better. In love, you approach your potential partners better. So the fear of rejection affects us in many ways. In that moment, for example, when you want to speak up but you don't raise your hand because you're afraid of being judged negatively, when you know you have something valuable to say but you stay quiet, out of embarrassment, out of fear. It's not a lack of ability. It's the fear of not being accepted. It's the fear of not being important, the fear of not being valued properly, the fear of not being enough. And here's the most dangerous part. Your fears make decisions for you without you realizing it, limiting your life. You choose not to put yourself out there, take risks, or say what you think. Gradually, you create a life that's smaller than the one you could be living. Neuroscience explains it very clearly. The brain interprets rejection, social rejection, as a real threat. It triggers the alarm and urges self-protection. So the fear of not being accepted, the fear of rejection for you in your subconscious somehow means a danger of death. But constantly protecting yourself is not living, it's surviving, and surviving poorly. Now ask yourself this tough question. What are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of conflict, of not seeming competent, of failing in front of others, of not being respected? Because until you name your fears, they will keep silently running your life. Naming them is one of the important techniques. Half the battle is solved, and the strongest part is this. Avoiding rejection takes you further from your true potential. The key that changes everything is this. Real security doesn't come from outside. Real security is built from within. When you understand your fears and stop running away from them, you start making decisions from clarity and not from survival. And that will transform the way you speak, act, lead, and live. A person who works on their fears becomes freer, more authentic, and much more powerful. The fear of rejection is taking away your authenticity. If this has stirred something inside you, write in the comments, "I stop living in fear." And from today on, start acting even if you feel afraid. Because that's where your real life begins. That's another key. Act even if you're afraid. Applied neuroscience for life. Your brain is sabotaging your life and you don't even know it. And today I'm going to explain how it does it so you can understand and avoid it, based on neuroscience. So, if you feel like you always end up in the same place in your life, that's not you. That's your brain. Your brain isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you safe. We've said this many times, but every time we face disappointment, it seems we forget. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. If you want to install the happiness program, the I'm happy program into your brain, you have to do other things. So, that's why you repeat patterns. In neuroscience, this is called predictive processing. Your mind creates the future based on your past. That's why you repeat relationships, income levels, and habits. When you get frustrated with this cycle, things get worse because you become desperate. You repeat this not by choice, but because it's what your brain knows. Here's the key point. Every time you try to grow, make more money, change your life, your body goes on alert, you get anxious, doubtful, afraid. Why? It's not weakness. It's not confusion. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's that your brain likes what's safe. And what's new isn't safe, it's just new. Your brain will always try to bring you back to where you started, to yesterday, to what already happened. Plus, there's another crucial point. Your brain doesn't really distinguish between what's real and what's imaginary. That's why when you repeat negative thoughts, you're training your brain to produce those negative thoughts. But if you visualize what you want with emotion, you train your brain to achieve it. And here's where another key system comes in. The reticular activating system. You only see what your mind believes is important. For example, there are many stimuli out there. What does your mind believe? It will give you what you focus on. So if you think about scarcity, you'll see problems. If you think about opportunities, you'll see changes. All of this is neuroscience. It's not that you're blocked, you're programmed. And when you change your programming, your life changes. Your reality doesn't change when the world changes. It changes when your mind changes. Write below in the comments, "I reprogram my mind." You need to get bored. And I'm going to explain why today. So pay close attention. I'm about to say something that contradicts what you're doing. You need to get bored if you want to be happier. It sounds counterintuitive, right? Well, that's exactly how it is. Let me explain. Today we constantly avoid boredom. Phones, social media, videos, music, anything just to avoid being alone with our own minds. Distractions. But science says something very clear. When you get bored, what's called the default network is activated in your brain, or the default mode network. And this network is related to creativity, introspection, and the meaning of life. In fact, studies from Harvard University, like those by psychologist Dan Gilbert, showed something striking. Many people prefer to give themselves small electric shocks rather than be alone with their thoughts for a few minutes. Why? Because when you get bored, you start thinking about what's important. Because when you get bored, thoughts come to you that you're blocking when you're constantly busy and distracted. What are you doing with your life? For example, that's something you might ask yourself when you're without distractions and bored. Does what I'm doing in my life make sense? Get bored so you can ask yourself this, or so it comes up for you. You can ask yourself, am I really happy? And of course, these vital questions are uncomfortable, but here's the important part. That uncomfortable silence is exactly where purpose is born. You reach for your phone whenever you feel empty because you dislike that feeling. And then, by doing this, you're training your brain to avoid meaning, depth, and self-reflection. And that, according to multiple studies, is related to the increase in anxiety, depression, and the feeling of emptiness in today's society. Now listen to me carefully. You don't need more entertainment. You need more connection with yourself. So try this. Work out without music. Walk without your phone. Wait without distractions. At first it will be hard for you, but then ideas, clarity, and answers will start to appear. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the doorway to other states of mind, to your true self. Write this in the comments below. I allow myself to be in silence. And if you want to live better, I encourage you to read my book, Manual of Conscious Wealth, which gives you simple and easy to follow instructions so you can improve your life every year. So that every year you live better than the previous year. See you soon. When God does not approve of a relationship, He sends you these 7 signs. Pay attention because all of this might make you uncomfortable, but it's also very important information that can save you and improve your life. When a relationship is not for you, your soul knows it before your mind does. And yes, you can call it God, intuition, or biology, but the signs are there. First sign, you constantly lose your peace of mind. This isn't just a bad day, it's ongoing and not by chance. Neuroscience has shown that when you're in an insecure relationship, your nervous system goes into constant alert, triggering anxiety and chronic stress. Second sign, you're drifting away from yourself. You know I focus on conscious wealth and teach you to improve your life, so listen closely. You're losing touch with yourself. Before you used to grow, dream, and expand, and now you're fading away. Psychology also calls it loss of identity in a relationship. You adapt so much that you stop being yourself. Third sign, you feel more anxious than loved. Healthy love regulates the nervous system. It doesn't disturb it. Studies on attachment show that secure relationships reduce cortisol. Toxic relationships trigger cortisol. Fourth sign, you don't need to stay in that relationship, and God, the universe, or your body sends you signals. You betray your values to make it work. And here's something key. When you cross your own boundaries, your self-esteem shatters. Fifth sign, the signs repeat themselves. People, situations, conversations, the same message appears over and over again. It's not a coincidence, it's a lack of action. Sixth sign, you give everything and receive very little. You get crumbs. And this creates what psychology calls intermittent reinforcement, the same pattern that creates emotional addiction. Seventh, and this is the clearest and most obvious sign. You're afraid to let go. But you feel a lot of relief when you imagine it. Fear comes from attachment. Relief comes from the truth. And here is the reality that nobody wants to accept. God or life doesn't break relationships on a whim. It breaks them to return you to yourself. Write down here, I choose relationships that give me peace, not anxiety. If you want to know more about how life works, I encourage you to read my book, Manual of Conscious Wealth, which contains simple instructions that will guarantee you live each year better than the last. Let's move forward and let's all go together, hand in hand. See you soon. 12 ways a woman helps a man earn more money. For me, a relationship means building together. This is most important. The second thing is that a man must be elevated and superior to deserve and attract this woman who builds with him. I dedicate myself to developing elevated men and women. Let's begin. A man's success doesn't depend only on himself. It also depends on the emotional environment he lives in. Therefore, a man can only go so far on his own, but with someone by his side as a team, he will go much farther and much faster. And here's where it gets interesting. Psychology has been showing for years that men's performance, decision-making, and ambition are deeply influenced by their immediate environment. That's why choosing a partner, both for men and women, is one of the main and most important decisions we have to make. It must be done very carefully. Well, studies on relationships like those by psychologist John Gottman show that emotional stability in a relationship improves focus, resilience, and decision-making abilities. Why do many people avoid relationships? Past disappointments and problems. What should they do? Keep believing in love and keep trying until it works out, no matter how many times it takes. Never, never, never give up. Alright, a simple translation of everything I'm telling you. A man at peace is more productive. A man who is at peace, well cared for, and feels the love and appreciation of his woman. So if you want to elevate the richness of your relationship, listen to this. 1. Believe in him even when there are no results yet. That's where empires are built. 2. Don't control him, give him autonomy. A watched man shuts down, a trusted man expands. 3. Be happy on your own. If all your happiness depends on him, it becomes pressure, not inspiration. 4. Create peace at home. An environment without unnecessary conflicts improves mental clarity and financial decisions. 5. Acknowledge their effort in front of others. Public recognition activates their motivation and identity of growth. 6. Respect them, even during the process. Don't speak to them from what you lack or from what they lack. Speak to them from their potential. 7. Take care of yourself because your energy, your presence, and your well-being elevate the whole relationship. 8. Be solution-oriented, not dramatic, less emotional noise, more strategic focus. So study and grow. You like him, him like you. 9. Ask questions that open up solutions. Don't criticize, expand his vision. 10. Total loyalty and correction in private. That builds real trust. 11. Manage your emotions. A man can't build wealth if he feels like he constantly has to rescue. 12. And the most important one, align your vision with his. Identity crisis. Today we're going to find out who you are when no one is watching you. Defining yourself by your actions puts you at risk. Because most people, when you ask them who they are, answer with things like this, right? I'm a businessman, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, but that's not you. That's just what you do. And here's the problem. Pay attention. When your identity depends on your job, your brain goes into constant survival mode. In psychology, this is related to the fear of losing status and social rejection. And the same response is triggered as with a real threat. Your mind doesn't distinguish between losing a job and losing your life. That's why tying your identity to your job is really bad for your emotional well-being when you lose it, and for many other reasons too. That's why there are successful people who live with anxiety and don't sleep well, who never feel like they're enough, because deep down they're not afraid of failing, they're afraid of no longer being someone. Deep down they're afraid to let go of who they think they are, and to your subconscious that's like facing death. That's a brutal trap. And now I'm going to give you an exercise that can change your life. It's uncomfortable, but it's deeply liberating. Imagine this step by step. First, you start to lose performance at your job. Then people start to notice. Then they replace you. You retire even though you don't want to. And over time, no one remembers what you did. And there comes a point where you yourself stop thinking about it. Now ask yourself this. If that happened, who would you still be? Yourself? Would you still be yourself? The real answer logically is yes, because you are not your profession, you are not your money, you are not your success. You are something much deeper than all of that. And when you accept that all of that can disappear, you stop living in fear. Then you'll be able to start making better decisions, then you'll stop needing approval. And interestingly, that's when you grow the most. Because you no longer act from fear, but from freedom. The fear of rejection and the fear of not being accepted are very important things that we've talked about many times. The most powerful people aren't those with the most, but those who feel least need to prove themselves. So, from today on, stop asking yourself, what do I do? And start asking yourself, who am I when no one is watching? You are a divine being. If this made you think, write in the comments. I am not what I do. And if you want to take this to a better level of consciousness, to a higher level, in my book, The Conscious Wealth Manual, I explain how to rebuild your identity. Scientific study that shows us how your mind is controlled. You're going to be amazed. According to a Harvard study, your mind is not as free as you think. It's being programmed. You'll see something very curious and subtle that influences you a lot. I'm going to tell you something real that may make you uncomfortable, so listen. Many of your thoughts are not your own, we already know that, but where do they come from and how do they condition us? Alright, before you even think about something, you may have already been influenced in different ways. There's an amazing experiment that proves this. One group of people was given a hot coffee and another group was given a cold coffee. That's it, nothing else. 10 minutes later, they were asked to describe a person. The ones who had held the hot coffee described that person as warm, approachable, and kind. Those who had the cold coffee described that person as distant, cold, and not very empathetic. All of this was a Harvard study. The only difference was the coffee's temperature. There's nothing more to it than that, just the coffee they were given to hold. This technique is called priming in psychology. What does that mean? invisible stimuli that prepare your mind to think in a certain way. Notice where marketing, politics, and social media are heading. And now comes the important part. If something as simple as a coffee can change your perception of another person, making you see them as warmer or colder, imagine what social media, the news, conversations, and what you consume every day can do. If you're not aware, you're not thinking for yourself. You're reacting to what others have programmed into your mind. Your mental state doesn't appear by chance. It's built with what you see, with what you hear, with what you repeat. That's why it's very important. I always insist to you that reading specific things like the ones I suggest in my book is very important, right? The Manual of Conscious Wealth. So at the end there, I tell you about the readings that work well for me and that are books I read over and over again. So keep in mind that most people live on autopilot, consume negative content, and fill their minds with fear. And then they wonder why they think negatively, why they doubt, why they don't move forward, why they get rashes on their skin, why they don't sleep well. But this is not a coincidence. This is external programming that we are receiving, whether other people are programming us or not, or we are programming it into ourselves unintentionally. So, the key question is this. Who could be influencing your mind right now at this moment? Because either you take control of what enters your head or someone else will do it for you. And that literally defines your life. People think they need to change their reality, but first they have to change what they feed their mind with. Your life is not what happens to you. Your life is how you interpret what happens to you.